Where are we? That's live now. What are we? Early? Good. Early for once, I think. Let's put that there. Where are we? That's not it. All right. If anybody's on there, I'm just waiting until it hits 7. So there's a couple of minutes. Can move that there. That there. Where are we? 6:59. No, 7 o'clock. All right, good. Kia ora, g'day everybody. Not sure who's on, but it's 7 o'clock, so I'm going to start, and then people can get back to their lives, their weekend. I've got just reading through on the phone the stuff that's come through. Queries around the videos, so the video frequency uploading. So I did a post in regards to the long form videos anyway. I don't think I specifically called out long form videos. I just said something along the lines of I wouldn't be spamming everybody with a video every day, something like that. But that was in reference to the long form videos, the ones that have currently been around 30 minutes, 40 minutes, thereabouts. So those will be uploaded Mondays and Fridays each week. And there was a query around, will the videos still just be 30 minutes or will they be longer? So I suppose I'm open to suggestions. If people wanted them longer, the person that I responded to when I asked, they said that they wouldn't mind. I think they mentioned that they'd prefer a longer video. Some people mentioned were kind enough, said that that was a shame because they were listening to the videos while they were at work. So yeah, but Mondays and Fridays is the long form video upload. And then shorts, though, which is sort of the next one, people have noticed that there's been a few YouTube shorts. And one of those people in the one of the comments had mentioned, reached out and said, I thought you said you're only going to be uploading Mondays and Fridays. So with the shorts, there'll probably be a bit more frequent uploads with the shorts videos themselves. I think probably maybe myself included, but I think probably most people or a lot of people maybe have a short attention span. And maybe not so much those that have been following my channel for a while. They've been putting up with me babbling on. So yeah, which has been kind of them. But the shorts, yeah, there'll probably be those up, putting those up more frequently, maybe daily or something like that. Just depends on how it goes. But there's a heck of a lot of questions and stuff that have come through, messages and comments, and a lot of that is, I think, is stemming from a bunch of people in recent weeks now that I've been fortunate to spend some time with and work with and support as best I can anyway. So that's those two. Um, where are we? Oops. G'day, Joe. Hot here in regional Queensland, no doubt. I bet. Good to see you or hear from you, William Keith. And thanks for the message and the comments and support as always, bro. So thank you very much. Uh, oh, here's one here. I'll throw this out, but I don't know how many people are on here. People can chime in if they liked. So one of the questions on one of my recent YouTube shorts from, I think today, the one talking about how I passed 2 selection courses. One of the guys, I don't think he'll mind me mentioning well, you'll see it in the comments anyway, those that want to have a look, and you'll see who it's from. One of the guys over in Australia, really awesome dude. It's a shame that he's dropped off on his channel, I think for work reasons and that sort of thing. Not military, but I think in another space. So maybe I won't mention his name here, but he put a comment on the video today. He says, so in relation to the how I passed 2 selection courses, and I talked through some stuff there and what they're looking for. My take anyway. And he's got, but can you train for and change your true colors? And then dot 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 dot. What control do we have to ensure we are showing up the right way once we've been broken down? Or are you born with the characteristics and stuck with them? I thought that was a cool comment, cool questions in there. I don't know that I have the answers for it, but I thought it'd be interesting. Well, I wanted to throw it out here, throw my 2 cents in the ring, and then people can either add theirs, say no, that's a load of rubbish to my comments, or add in their own if they want, or they can just sit back. So anyway, but can you train for and change your true colors? True colors, I don't know. I think about myself and how over the years I like to think I've changed, hopefully in more positive ways than negative ways. I likely still hold on to a lot of my traits, um, characteristics, for want of a better term, things that are near and dear to me. So, true colors. Can you change? Can you train for and change your true colors? I don't know. I know I personally never thought about trying to train for or change my true colors. I have and do work with a few people that, bless them, have mentioned that they want to try to develop and become the person that they need to be for the unit. And that's cool to hear. But in terms of what your, I suppose, was it your true nature, your true colors, as he's got here in this comment, I don't know I don't know of anybody that, including myself, I never went on to a selection or went into a unit thinking that I needed to be um, something other than what I was. I think I've spoken about this in not this specific question, but I think I've spoken about it, I suppose, in broad terms, in and around, like, selection will discover who you are anyway, and it will uncover your weaknesses. And whatever those are, warts and all, you're gonna communicate, you're gonna behave, you're gonna respond, you're gonna react, you're gonna do whatever it is that I suppose you would naturally and or normally do. And the directing staff in the unit are gonna identify things that they think is um, suitable for a person looking to come into the unit, or things that they think, okay, might be a bit rough around the edges, but we think we can train and help this person, and we think that they can help us if they're able to learn these skills or these traits, etc. So true colors, yeah, I don't know about that. What control do we have to ensure we are showing up the right way once we've been broken down? So to my comment that I mentioned earlier, some of the people saying that they want to go on selection, trying to be this person that they think the regiment wants. And I think that is potentially a recipe for disaster. I think you just show up on selection knowing that you've put in a whole bunch of work physically, mentally, in whatever areas that you've found that you've needed to work in, and you just be yourself. The rest will take care of itself. So either way, you're going to get some feedback, whether you pass or whether you complete selection but don't get selected for cycle. you'll likely get some feedback or a report. Or if you complete selection and pass, actually, when I did pass, didn't get any feedback around how we performed or how I performed or anything like that, not in NZ or Australia. So scratch that part. But I do know of people that have received feedback um, when they haven't been selected. So they've passed selection, but they haven't been selected that time round to go onto the cycle. So there's usually a bit of a briefing and stuff that happens, which is specific for that person. But yeah, don't try to show up trying to anticipate who you need to be or who you think the unit wants you to be. Just, you got to show up and be yourself. I think that's what I did anyway. So that's what I suggest or recommend to anybody. Or are you born with the characteristics and stuck with them? Yeah, I suppose to the earlier part that I mentioned or was trying to talk about, I think anybody, all of us, have that capacity to change. Your beliefs can change, although those things may take a bit longer and may take a bit more convincing for people to change their belief about something. But people can have different values, things that you or habits or traits that you may have been used to doing for long periods of time or from a young age. You can start to grow out of those, I think. Um, and so, with regards to born with characteristics and stuck with them, um, yeah, I think everybody's still trying to develop and evolve and try to become better. And so, if I think if that's on people's agenda, personal agenda, in terms of trying to be better, just trying to be a better person, I think you can't help but naturally change or have some of your characteristics and traits and whatever change. So if one that sticks out to my head in my head right now is the use of language for me that I try to apply these days. Like I used to swear like a champion in the army, and maybe probably even a little bit before the army, um, at different times. But I definitely discovered a second language, so to speak, once I got into the army. And every second, third word was a F bomb or a B this or a C that or a whatever. Not very nice language anyway. And so it took for me to leave, not leave, but for me to meet I should say, my now wife, and it all it took for her was to mention one thing to me one time when we were together. And she said, "Oh, there was something wrong." And all I remember her saying is, she said, "Oh, you swear a lot." And I was like, "Oh, a bit of a light bulb moment." I think part of that, couple of things come flooding my mind. I knew that I needed to switch off that swearing when I was around my mum because I didn't want to get a hiding or told off or a slap around the ears. So I knew I could do it. But for whatever reason, when I was with her, I just kept going. So anyway, maybe going off on a tangent, but when you're talking about changing those characteristics or things that we may have been accustomed to doing for a very long period of time, I think again coming back, if we're genuine about trying to make some positive changes, I think we can change those things. But overall, I don't recommend anybody looking to go into selection trying to anticipate the type of person that they think they need to be. I suppose on that, people might say, well, what are you putting out the videos for then? And especially as some of the shorts content. I think that's more just to give people a bit of an idea. I think by and large, a lot of people probably already have an idea or an inkling that that's probably stuff that they're looking for from a candidate before they go to the unit or whilst they're on selection anyway. And maybe by me just putting it out there, um, it may be helpful. At the end of the day, if somebody's a wanker, it's not going to change who they are when they go on selection. They might not even see the videos that I've put up. So or maybe they do, and maybe they're just a bit too set in their ways and they don't change. So anyway, that's my take on that. Thank you for the comments on there. Sorry, I don't have the answers for you, brother, but appreciate you taking time as always to support the channel and putting some comments down. What do we get in here? Hey Joe, did you ever have anyone blow up on selection? Any funny stories? Oh, I'll let me come back to that later. What's this got here? I'll never stop swearing, Joe, even with all the valid points you made. Christian, yep, respect, bro. You go hard. The tongue can be the hardest muscle in the human body to control. Yep, yeah, I agree. Mr. Keith, William Keith, 100%. Where are we? Did you ever have anyone blow up on selection? Any funny stories? Let me come back to that one. What's that? Grant Doby, 6734. Let me just carry on with these. So, here's a genuine one. So I put up a video recently. This person just put a comment in here. I won't read it out because I've asked the question as well. They just got cool to see your daughter bang out 3 pull-ups on IG on Instagram in one of your videos today. So yeah, I did put up a video on Instagram today. From not being able to do one to where she is now is amazing. Thank you. Yep. I think she's done an incredible job. What has her training involved? So I won't go into all the details, and it's not really complicated, to be fair. She has a morning training session, afternoon training session. It's been, by and large, for the most part, so about 4 months ago, she couldn't even do like half a pull-up. You get on the bar, arm straight, and be like, and then just like a little bend in the arms, and that was it. Literally, like no pulling strength at all. Some of that was to do with just her health and well-being, and me being me, I just let her know. And I think I've spoken about this in other lives. It's like, yeah, no, you're training till you turn 18 and you're technically an adult, legally an adult. Like, while you're here, you're training. So unless you got sports or it's Sunday when her and her mum and that go to church. So a lot of the training initially was just a lot of aerobic type stuff. From there, that was probably the first month nearly, and then started incorporating some technique. So it's just been light body weight stuff, body weight mechanics first with deadlifting, with push-ups, with body weight squats, all that sort of thing. And then she's progressed to using an empty bar. We've got a large Lincoln reinforcement iron steel bar outside, because the 20-kilo barbells probably still, mind you, not so much now, but probably still a bit heavy for some movements, whereas the other bar that we've got, she can sort of use that for a whole bunch of things. So doing barbell complexes just to reiterate the movement patterns and technique for her, and then incorporating some strength and that sort of stuff. And so now she still trains, well, she has to train as a morning session and an afternoon training session. And if she does an aerobic type activity in the morning, then there'll be some sort of strength activity in the evening, or vice versa. Sometimes it is just some straight aerobic stuff, but there's been a concerted effort towards helping her work towards her pull-ups, and 3 has been the goal in particular, because uh, she is turning 16 soon this year. I think she may be one of her only friends in school that doesn't have a mobile device. So the rule within our home was that kids could have them when they're 18 and they're working and they can pay for it and buy it themselves. There have been a couple that have sort of slipped through the hinaki on that one, because they started working earlier, and so therefore they could afford their phone. Anyway, with this one, she's pretty responsible. And so the mother and I felt like, we're actually probably not too worried if she has a device. But me being me, I threw in one extra clause that she needed to be able to do 3 overhand grip pull-ups, all the way up, all the way down, all the way up, all the way down, all the way up, all the way down. So needs to be able to do 3 of those under control, and then she can have a phone. We're still not buying it for her. She'll have to save her money from work and buy it for herself, that sort of thing. But so she's pretty close. She did 2, and then the last one, even though she did do 3, technically she did 3, it needs to be without any like extra kipping to try to get her head and chin over the bar. So she's like 4 months ago, from not being able to do anything to now where she can do 3 overhand, 2 as per what's been asked, and then the third one with a little bit of a holding and kip to get up. Won't take her long. she's pretty excited about that. So that gave, I guess, some added motivation, but you wouldn't have thought so. So even with that um, incentive, do 3 pull-ups consecutive over end grip pull-ups, and you can have a phone. Even that didn't really push her. Um, I think because of where she started from and how feeble it was for her, she just doing 1 pull-up just wasn't even in her scope, wasn't even in her thought process. So yeah, just you know, consistency with what she's been doing, tuning up each day, even though she didn't want to. Really, she hasn't had a choice. Like she's had to get up and do her training morning and afternoon, and it's been lucky. It's been school holidays, but she'll still have to keep that routine when she starts school. So um, yeah, so we'll see how she goes, how she progresses. That's pretty much been her training mix of endurance, aerobic type stuff, and some weight stuff, mostly body weight, helping her with the technique, with real light stuff, and then incorporating some strength work in between. So, oops, hang on, let me just getting the things up on the phone. Yeah, so that's been it. That's been what her training has been involved. It hasn't been anything fancy or spectacular. It's just yeah, small consistent efforts accumulating each day, and she's where she is now. So that's good. Um, in line with one of the comments on here from Grant Doby, can you share some Aussie SAS stories if you have any? That was again a comment on one of the shorts videos that was up. So let me come back to that. That one's probably a bit more generic than maybe Grant's one is. Yeah, Grant talks about selection in particular. This comment just said shares some Aussie SAS stories. So yeah, I don't know about that one. Um, this one, this one. What surprised you most once you were badged in the unit? Um, what surprised me most was a couple of things. One, we hardly ever wore the beret. So I was like, oh, okay. So that was probably one. And then the second was just how much work was being done each day. Um, yeah, it didn't surprise me how awesome the work was, but just how much work was getting done. So um, full days, and it was awesome. I didn't expect that. So that was probably the most surprising. I didn't think you'd get in there and then just be sitting back, but I didn't anticipate or think about, man, this is like you're in, you report, you're off PT, you're back, you get cleaned up, you're back into work, draw weapons, go to the range, do this, do that, doing whatever tasks, serials you need to do, then packing up, cleaning up, getting back, deservicing, do another PT session, then head off and go home, and just repeating, rinse and repeat. So it was awesome. I thought anyway. Lots of rounds going down range. Going from an infantry battalion where at that time anyway, I don't know what it's like now. I assume it's probably still similar. Um, Ammunition and rounds were, you know, you didn't have massive amounts to be putting down range. You also didn't have scope to be able to do your own thing or to be trusted to do your own thing. And when I say do your own thing, I mean working on um, drills, working on shooting, whether it's from different positions, whether it's with different weapons, etc., etc. A lot of that was still structured anyway when you come through and you report and you get your briefing. But um, yeah, it was a lot of fun. So that's what I'd say on that one. Um, what's one trait people think matters most for selection that actually doesn't? My take, I think people concerning themselves with trying to, I don't know if being the best is the right term, but trying to be the best or trying to be top five, trying to thinking that that's important. Like they have to put on a good, oh, no, that is true. You do need to put on a good showing, but thinking that, I don't know if I'm making sense, that they have to be in that real top group, like always at the front of the pack with anything, with PT, with navigation, with the struggles that happen, maybe even the dunes and the NZ or whatever. But that stuff. Coming back to the question, one trait I don't know if that's a trait either. People matters most. Like you don't need to be. Um, you want to try to as best you can. You are wanting to try to give a good account of yourself. If you can be up in the front of things, good for you. But to the question, like that that doesn't matter most to the unit. Not in my opinion, not in my experience anyway. So yeah, that's probably that one. Um, oh, and you've got here, and what's the boring trait that quietly wins every time? The boring trait that quietly wins every time. That's a cool question. Um, I reckon there's probably a couple of things that come to mind the same too, consistency and discipline. But yeah, consistency is probably the pretty boring trait. Um, Discipline's pretty boring trait with regards to especially doing things that you don't want to do. So I think those two things instead of just the one from my side. Yeah, consistency and discipline, both pretty boring. Doing those things over and over again, um, more often than not, set you in good stead. Not just for selection, I think just life in general. So that's my 2 cents anyway. Um, oops. Uh, My set 23. How often were you on the range shooting during your time? Was it an everyday occurrence? Yeah, pretty much every day. For that one, that was nice and quick and easy. Thanks for that question. So, my soap 23. This one. Can you train resilience without going to extremes like selection style punishment? Selection style punishment. And what does that look like for everyday people looking to prepare for something like selection? That's a cool question. Can you train resilience without going to extremes? It's that part that I find interesting and pretty, I suppose, cool. Because I get questions. I think I might have done some shorts or part of one of the longer form videos spoke about resilience and stuff in that anyway, my take. But can you train resilience without going to extremes like selection style? What does that look like for everyday people who are looking to prepare for something like selection? So I think for me is a number of things as I look at that question. Plenty of things you can do to train for resilience. I mean, sports training, whether you're an individual or team sport, um, laboring work, and I'm just spitballing off the top of my head with things that worked for me. So laboring work was one of those things. Not that I volunteered or wanted. Well, I suppose technically I did volunteer to do it, but my mum had a strong hand in telling me that I was going to do it. uh, Martial arts is another thing. Like you learn self control, you learn discipline and stuff there, but you also learn some skills and how to try to look after yourself or look after others. So there's an element there of service. I think anyway, as I reflect back and as I look at my time in that space, and if you have some ability in those sorts of areas, having an opportunity to use that for good, in terms of looking to help others or look after others, I think that's a good thing. So yeah, what's that? Like sport stuff, laboring work, martial arts. What else did I get up to? Learning resilience. What does it say? Learning resilience. They're going to the extremes. Oh, well, I think, yeah, other things that I started to do when I was getting ready to go into the army, like I knew I needed to start training. So put some weight in a backpack and go for a walk, go for hikes, do your swimming, doing things I think that you're either not good at or that you don't want to do, but you will either need those things down the track. So, say for something like selection, if you're not a good swimmer, then get in the pool and swim, or get out in the ocean and swim. Watch out for the sharks, depending on where you are, though. There's been a few shark attacks lately over in Oz, from what I've seen on the news. Not to mention the landslides and stuff here that's been happening in NZ and people missing and that sort of thing. But the resilience aspects, yeah, doing things that you don't want to do. Again, applying that consistency and discipline towards those things and trying to work on them. So I think those sort of everyday things, I think people can relate to those, and there'll probably be a whole bunch of other things training resiliency without getting to like dealing with injuries. Um, finding a way to try to work through those types of things. You can develop it can help towards building resiliency, in my opinion, anyway, in my experience. Because all too often, many people just look to try to, oh, I'm injured, I can't do anything, and they'll just stop everything. So that's not really that resilience if you're wired that way. So taking little steps and doing everyday things like that, I think can help. That's my take anyway. Um, it's this one. What's something you believe now that you didn't believe before going through selection? What's something you believe now that you didn't believe before going through selection? I don't know. Something you believe now that you didn't believe before going through. I can't think of anything that I didn't believe before going through selection. So I haven't got anything for you on that one. This other one here says, following on from that, says, did you honestly think you could successfully complete selection? Yes, I did. I I didn't honestly think I would get selected for further training, but I've spoken about that because of my age and lack of experience in the army. And even though I chose infantry, I was still not an experienced infantry soldier. So, but did I honestly think I could successfully complete selection? Yeah, 100%. Um, I don't think, although I know that there are people that do go on selection, but I don't think you should go on selection if you don't have confidence in yourself that you'll complete it. Um, I think it's okay to go on selection being unsure as to whether or not you'll get selected, and so therefore passing and get selected for further training. But you shouldn't have any reservations about whether or not you'll complete the selection course. So that's my take anyway. Oops, sorry. Training for resilience. Go before it's gone, or you will be gone before you go. I like it, William Keith. Go before it's gone, or you will be gone before you go. Look at that. Words of wisdom. Um, and here we are. How long is that? Geez, half an hour. Man, time goes quick. Uh, if you could strip selection prep down to just three non-negotiables, what are they? And what do people waste way too much time on? If you could strip selection prep down to just three non-negotiables, I don't know if it's three. I would say running, pack work, your body weight exercises, and swimming. So yeah, I don't. Those are four. I don't. The question was if I could strip it down to three. I don't have three. Those are four. Four NZ and the Australian selection. Those would be the four non-negotiables that I would put down. And what do people waste way too much time on? I think from my time, I don't know what it's like these days, but if I'm applying this question to my time, and I think the second question, that first part of the question, what are the three things? But I've given four. I think that still applies today. But what did people waste too much time on during my time? I think probably too much time in the gym. That's just my take, and not enough time out with the pack on. So even though I said running first, like running is important because usually you're going to get those running activities first up or early on the testing of selection. Usually that will happen before you've done any sort of pack work. And so if you can't, well, I shouldn't say if you can't, but if you're not able to pass that while you're reasonably fresh, for want of a better term, on the selection, your running aspects, that is, then you're going to be in trouble. Like if you don't pass it, then you're going to be kicked off. Like see you later, unless they have something in place now whereby you can have a retest like so many minutes after. Even then, I think if you failed it the first time and you're having a short breather, then you're going to get retested again. Probably unlikely that you're going to pass it the second time. But hey, maybe it can happen. I know from what I saw in the Search for Warriors, I don't recall it happening on my selection, but on the Search for Warriors, the Australian one, guys that failed their 20 clicker pack march, uh, they got a retest several days after, and some of them passed it. So they failed it the first time when they would have been fresher, and then they passed it the second time after however many other days that they'd just gone through. So how that works, I don't know. I'd rather just get through it the first time. So too much time. What do people waste too much time on? Yeah, probably just gym stuff. Maybe I don't know what it's like these days, so don't quote me on it. But maybe too much hit type training, maybe too much CrossFit type training for when it comes to selection. By all means, do that stuff when you're in, but I think the benefit lies in being under load with that pack, your body needing to move, your shoulders, your back, your hips, your knees, your legs, your ankles, everything getting used to the monotony, the boring, repetitive nature of carrying that pack with a decent amount of weight for long periods of time, um, and doing that day after day after day. So yeah, that's you could, I think, leave the vast majority of the gym training in your prep for selection, and focus predominantly on your running and your body weight stuff. Heck of a lot of pack work and the swimming, which can be sort of aerobic, cardio, as well as recovery on your joints and all that sort of thing. So those four things, I think, put you in good stead. Um, yeah, and that's that. Man, there's a lot in there today, and I babbled on. Where are we? Talk 5018. Kia ora, Joe. Hey, kia ora. Hello, everybody. However many, oh yeah, it's got here. It's showing 10 on there. So thank you, say, for taking time out of your out of your Friday to be here. If you are here, unless you just have it playing in the background or whatever. Thank you. Now, where was I? Grant Dobie. Hey, Joe, did you ever have anyone blow up on selection? Any funny stories? Blowing up. I think I know what you mean by it. I'm just trying to think now. Geez, and dust off the cobwebs here. Now you're testing the grey matter. Let's go. Am I thinking about an NZ first? An NZ? Anybody blow up? No. I can't recall anybody on the NZ one blowing up. Mind you, NZ one's very different, very much more isolated, and he didn't want to get caught talking to anybody. So I can't picture anybody blowing up on selection, having a dummy spit or anything like that. I think if there was, not that I recall seeing any, or not that I heard of any on mine, I think the directing staff probably would have dealt with that pretty quick. When I have seen people withdraw, it's always been pretty quiet. Like they just start shaking their head, their body language starts to tell, and they just either wander over, speak with the directing staff, and say, "I'm done." Um, and then you don't see them again. So there, NZ, Australia. Australia, did anybody blow up on Australia? Have a dummy spit, throw the toys out of the cot? Pretty similar in terms of the withdraw at own request. Did have a couple of people. There's not, I suppose, not really a funny story, but maybe a helpful story to somebody else. There was won't mention his name because he went on to get badged, but we were pretty deep into lucky dip. There might have been maybe a day left, maybe a day and a half left of what would have then taken us to the 21 days. You know, people, I have heard people say that they lost track of time on selection. I didn't lose track of time, not on the Australian selection. I was like 21 days. I'm like getting that wired in my head. Okay, 21 days, yeah, 3 weeks. So I had a reasonably good understanding of how long we were, or how far into selection we were. But there was one activity we've been up all day, or most of the day. Probably started at about 3 o'clock in the morning, maybe 2 o'clock, thereabouts anyway. And you're packing up and you're moving, carrying a whole bunch of gear. You're in your small team by then. Directing staff is giving you instructions. You rotate through being a PC, 2IC, and just a team member, etc. Get to the next checkpoint, where there's another directing staff, and then there's an area where you need to set up. Anyway, we were tasked with then having to dig shell scrapes, um, or like a shell scrape that you could hop into, but also fight out of if you needed to. Place up a hood if you needed to. We were told we'd dig our shell scrape, then we'd be able to get some rest. So at night time, late at night, and we had to use our cups canteen. So the metal cups canteen, that was pretty rubbish. But one of the guys, and this is why I've spoken about quitting and people having the thought, but one of the guys, we were in pairs, but we each, in your pairs, you each had to dig your own shell scrape. So it's not like you're in pairs and you just dig one shell scrape between the two of you, then you can get some sleep. That was all a farce anyway. Nobody got any sleep. It was just another activity to keep us awake and to see how we would cope. Anyway, during that activity, this individual spoke with me and said, "Man, I'm thinking about quitting. I think I'm done. I think I'm going to quit." And that was him talking to me, like unsolicited. I didn't ask. It's, you're just there doing the task that the directing staff had asked. And actually, I'll mention his name because he's out now. He's done a podcast on the True Blue podcast just recently, but Wayne Weeks, awesome guy. He was a patrol commander, sergeant, I think, when I was in. We were in the same squadron, but he was a B Troop water operator, patrol commander, just incredible guy. Anyway, it was his stand that we were on. He was the one that gave us the task. He wasn't there when this conversation happened with one of the other guys who said he felt like leaving, that he's going to quit. And I thought to myself in that moment, I'm just going to, I'm going to give one just sort of encouragement. And then if he still carries on and babbles on about he's going to quit, I'm just going to not say anything and just ignore him. That was my mentality. So I did. I said, "Oh," and all I said was, "Bro, it's not that long to go. Just keep going." And that, then he didn't really dwell on that part, which was surprising because, like I said, probably would have been a day, maybe a day and a half left for selection. And instead, so I suppose it had already bubbled around the group that were for our cohort for selection in Australia. And then he changed his comment after that. So he didn't acknowledge what I had just said, which is fine. But he asked the question, said, "Oh, are you ex-SAS?" That was what he said to me while we were two plebs on selection in Australia. And I didn't laugh, but I sort of frowned. I wasn't too sure. I was like, "That's random. How did that come up?" And I said, "No, who told you that?" And he goes, "Oh, some of the guys." And so there were a number of guys that I was on selection with from 4RAR, and maybe they had said something, but I think maybe he didn't hear because those guys knew that I wasn't ex-New Zealand SAS. I had just done the selection and had been on the cycle. So anyway, I said, "Yeah, no, I'm not." I said, I've done the selection." And that whole process, why I share that story in regards to the question in terms of I suppose the mindset shift that happened for this guy, almost continuously for maybe 30, 40 minutes, he just kept asking little questions, nothing to do with the selection that we were in right there. And maybe to a degree, maybe it served as a distraction for me, but I was still, so was he. We were still cognizant of, we're not having a picnic, mate. We can't just be talking about whatever we want. So we're whispering away as and where we could. I'm responding to his questions as well as I can, and as quietly as I can. And it just shifted. Like there wasn't another word from him that came out about thinking about quitting, whereby he thought that he was going to just walk off and go see the staff and just pull the pin, fill out his withdraw it own request form and hand it in. I didn't have my one anyway because I'd already destroyed it. But it was nice. And that experience has always stuck out with me in terms of people feeling like quitting, people wondering, worrying and concerning themselves with, "Oh, if I'm going on selection, I should never be feeling like I'm quitting," or people beating themselves up because they had thoughts about quitting. It's like, everybody's different. I think it's a normal thing for people to experience. That guy went on, and we're standing in the photo together that we had. We all of us are lined up. He went on, past selection, past cycle, got badged, and a really awesome guy, good dude. So it's there's no. I think some people might think that there's shame in thinking about quitting. Um, like I said, I can't, and this is just me personally. I also know of some other people that didn't think like that. Pretty sure Nick Caldwell, the Aussie guy, I'm pretty sure he was sort of wired the same. He never thought about quitting. Um, and so you get people that some don't think about quitting, some do. Just because you think about quitting doesn't mean that you um, that you are not suitable to be there in the unit. That's what I'm trying to get at. Hopefully that makes sense. So yeah, and then at the same time, you have some people that do actually follow through, quit for whatever reason, and they come back and then they bloody crack it and smash it the next time. So, you know, they just weren't ready that time at that stage of when they went through for whatever reason. So that's probably that. It's not a funny story at all. Sorry, Grant Dobie, but it was something that just popped into my head when I'm trying to think of a story from selection. There's other things, I suppose, in and around whereby I was pretty feeble and weak, and the river crossing was one of those when my gear started to sink, and Nick Caldwell was there, and he was stuck beside me in the bloody Zodiac, and the staff were in there saying, "Oh, you want to get in the boat? Do you, candidate 19?" Because my stuff is sinking. My rifle's on top, and that's like going down too, and I'm trying to keep that up because it's taking on water and trying to swim across this bloody lake thing that they've put us in. Can't touch the bottom. So there were, I suppose, funny little things like that. Funny now, wasn't so funny at the time. And I was grateful to have, Nick there who helped out, got me across to the end. And then, lucky enough, I was able to pay that back because at different stages, people struggle at different times. And that was probably one of the main times that I can recall because like I'm looking at the distance to get across this lake, this waterway, and I'm thinking, bloody hell, my pack's gonna go under. I'm gonna have to I'm gonna have to go under with it, or I'm gonna have to ditch the pack and keep the rifle because I can't keep this up. So anyway, Nick helped me out there, but then there was another activity where the truck started rolling off and moving, and we were coming up. Everybody was sort of in a gaggle, but then the truck started driving faster, and then our group started to spread right out. And yeah, I was fortunate, able to be up close enough to the MOG, chuck my pack up, because the instruction was we had to get our packs on and then get up into the truck. So I threw my pack on, looked back, and there was a group of people close behind me. They got up, but then my mate Nick was a little bit further back. So, and he's still carrying his gear, his pack, his rifle, and trying to run to catch up. And so I had a decision to make. We can all get on the truck or can go back. So you run back and help your mate grab his gear. Now I'm getting to help him with his pack, and we're running forward, and we get it up there, and then he gets up, and then I get up onto the truck. So it just sort of swings around, eh? And when I speak about, or when I've spoken about in some of the videos, how you respond when you're stressed, being observed under pressure, you've received instruction, when you're tired, how you treat other people, etc., etc. Like to me, what Nick did for me first, because that the water crossing happened before that, before the Unimog one, like just said a lot. It helped too that Nick and I were scout group in East Timor together, so we were, we're good friends. And he was I thought he was a great operator. So it's pretty easy, I suppose, to go back and help your mates when you know who they are. It can be maybe it can be different if you don't know the person, but I like to think I would have gone back. It wouldn't have mattered. I think Nick would have gone back as well. I think some of those other fellas that were just coming in behind me probably would have come back, but they could see by then I'm really with him and we're coming towards the truck. I think, to be fair, the truck probably slowed down a little bit for us too. Might have realized that they were stretching us a bit thin, especially given how many days into the selection we were in, which was probably day 15, 16, something like that. Might have even been 17, day 17, 18. So there's still a few more days to go, and that might have they might have realized that they might be draining our battery a bit quicker than than what they should have been at that time. Who knows? But yeah, little things like that. Um, Me being worried about the food, all the food that we were getting in the first probably week and a half or 10 days of the Australian selection. I was like, man, this is a lot of food. Like we're getting we're getting fed well. This is awesome. But at the same time, I was worried. I was like, man, are they just going to hammer us and make us throw all this food up? Yeah, it was a bit of a shock to the system. Then I understood why. Once we got to Lucky Dip, and then we bloody got nothing, or we got some offal and that sort of thing once during that week period, and we had a few little blackberries and stuff in between that we came across in between, and I've spoken about that on another video. um, yeah, but definitely good memories, good times. I enjoyed it. I think one of the things that stands out for me is people that go on selection, or those that complete selection, whether they get selected for the cycle or not. People that I've spoken to anyway, there may be some that may be opposite, but those that complete selection typically all come back and or talk about how awesome it was and how well run it was. Um, just yeah, everything runs like clockwork. Even though when you're part of or maybe in the backgrounds of a selection, it might not feel like it's running like clockwork. When you're a candidate and you're just getting hammered with everything that needs to be done, or you're getting instructions on what you need to do, it feels slick as feels like it's running like clockwork. And yeah, it's awesome to be a part of. So anyway, that's that. Plenty of other questions, stuff for content, which I've got. Some of those I'll probably just make videos of as well at some stage and add to the other channel. But appreciate the questions and the comments. Sorry, I got sidetracked there. There's bloody some comments that came through. Uh, Grant Dobie laughing. Probably laughing because I gave rubbish stories. Talk 5018. I've heard from people in the military that Kiwis are often remembered as being good at getting along with local community overseas. In your time deployed, did that resonate with what you saw? For me, because I'd heard that as well. For me, I found some of the guys, like myself included, I like to think I got on well with the local communities in Timor. We had some, like again, Nick was one of the guys, and then some other guys that were in there too, but they're still in the regiment now, so I won't drop their names. One of them was a translator, but they built great relationships. White skin, blue eyed, blonde hair, built great relationships with the locals from what I saw whilst we were there. In Iraq, a bit of a different story. There wasn't really, or not wasn't really, there wasn't any hearts and minds that we are trying to do there. Snap VCPs to try to snapture people or get people that might have been trying to flee Iraq and all that sort of stuff. And, you're not really winning too many hearts and minds when you're implementing a VCP and you got guns out and you're forcing vehicles to pull over people, families legitimately trying to get out of that area. So, but you conduct yourself as professionally as you can without trying to upset those that you're dealing with, that you're working with. But to that point, yeah, I think I have heard that as well. I found that, noticed it personally, that the relationships and the connection wasn't too bad. I probably noticed it more in the Middle East and in parts of Africa during my time private security. Those times were very different to the military, and probably equally, if not more so, important to build relationships with the civilians in your area. So that came in handy there, and having the privilege to work with a number of Kiwis during that time, they were pretty similar, but also worked with a number of Brits too from 2 SAS, and they had a good way about them with regards to working with the community. So I don't think it's unique to Kiwis. I think the Brits that were there doing it, probably from their, and I've never been to Northern Ireland, but I'm assuming from all the different operations and the experience that they have in a whole bunch of different areas, probably contributes to their ability to try to build rapport and stuff as well, from what I saw. And yeah, and did I work with? Yeah, I worked with a few Aussies and stuff there. Yeah, I mean, from what I saw, can't speak for all of them, no way. There's probably some Kiwis that might have been thinking idiots to some of the locals, and same there may have been, Americans, Australians. There may have been some British that might not have been too flash towards locals in that as well. So pretty a pretty general comment from me, based on what I saw. And were there moments that really stuck with you? I think there's plenty of moments that stick with me. Probably don't have time to go into them here. Did you have any knowledge of what happened on selection before you went through, and what was the longest distance you had rucked or ran before doing the 60-kilometer on selection? Yeah, I definitely had knowledge of the selection. So I just didn't know what order things were in. So I knew the 2.4 needed to be under 10 minutes. I knew about, well, everybody knows about, like, it was called a RFL then, your required fitness level. So that included your 2.4 run, your push ups, your sit ups, pull ups. I knew about the swim test. I knew about the BET, so pack march, force pack march with all your gear, the rope climbs and stuff, a little fireman's carry piece. I knew that there was this thing called the dunes. I knew that there was 3 days of open country navigation and 3 days of close country navigation, and I knew that there was a 60 clicker at the end. That's for the New Zealand one. I just didn't know what order all of those things happened in. I didn't train for the dunes. People have asked me that. I didn't train with a pack on, carrying jerry cans or anything like that. I felt that was just going to always come down to how badly I wanted to be there. And that's my take. So I never trained that way. Australia, before I get into the other parts of your question, Australia, I knew about the 2.4 heaves, it was called then. So your pull ups, push ups, sit ups, swim test, the 3.2. Did I say 3.2? So the 2.4, the 3.2, which are two running activities. Sorry, I forgot to mention in NZ the Hares and Hounds, which is the webbing run. That was, I don't know, I think it was an 8-kilometer run or 9-kilometer run in your webbing and rifle. Australia's got their webbing run 3.2, but you had 16 minutes or 16 and a half minutes to finish it in, to come in under. So I knew about that. I knew about the 20 clicker pack march, and then I knew that there was going to be open country and close country navigation. So I didn't know, I'd heard about this thing called Lucky Dip, but I didn't know what it meant. So I didn't know anything else in and around that. Lone Warrior, Happy Wanderer, Lucky Dip. Like, I didn't know what those things, actually, I didn't even know about Lone Warrior or Happy Wanderer until I was on selection. And then Lucky Dip being the last phase. So didn't know as much about the Australian selection before I went on compared to what I knew about the New Zealand one. And then your next part, what was the longest distance you'd rucked or ran? Oh, running wise, I know I probably would have done maybe a few 20-kilometer runs, like no marathons or anything like that. But on average, my running would have probably been anywhere between 5 to 12 kilometers, the runs, but regular, pretty regular. And then the pack marching, I don't know that I recorded distance, but most of the times I went for time. So whether it was a 2-hour, 3-hour, or a 4-hour pack march, I did spend one part of selection prep with a couple of mates of mine, Richie Peters and Dave Moy, from 1st Battalion. We went up into the back of the hills. Can't remember how far down the road, heading towards Wellington. Then we turned in. Then we got dropped off by a mate with our packs and everything. We went up into the hills behind Linton and stuff there, and then just made our way across the hills, and then got back pretty much in line with Linton, and then we come back down and then walk back into camp. So we did that over a weekend, and that was cool. Took some food, took some jack rations, gas cooker, frying pan, and yeah, basically just walked along, humped the hills, and then till we got along with camp, and then come back down. So I don't know how far that was, but that took us a good couple of days to get through that. And I know I definitely never did a 60-kilometer pack march. I probably would have done a few 20+ kilometer pack marches, to be fair. But that's probably about it. Nothing spectacular. I think the important part well, what I thought was important was just the consistency in putting the reps in and getting out with the pack on, whether it was an hour in the morning or 2 hours in the morning and then again in the afternoon, or whether it was the pack work and a swim, or whether it was a run and the pack work. Like, pack was a constant in my diet when it came to preparing for selection for both NZ and Australia. So yeah. um, GG, you're welcome, Grant. Zach SOS. I met Wayne Weeks when he was RSM at AUR, Oz Regiment, I guess you mean, or AUR, is that something else, in Adelaide? A real down-to-earth gentleman, and he spoke to everyone with respect and equally regardless of rank. I didn't know he was SASR until a few years. Yeah. He's a stud, man. Gun, pistol shot. Well, he was back. I'm sure he still is now, but there's a bloody gun, pistol shot too. Helped me massively during cycle and that sort of thing. I would have definitely got more tips and stuff from him had to spent more time with him, but he's different troop to my troop, even though we're in the same squadron. Later, when he was RSM of SSR, giving us an RSM brief before the infamous kit check on selection. Even then, I bet he probably still would have been pretty down to earth. He's how he speaks in that podcast, on the True Blue podcast, and any other interviews I've heard, very laid back, man. Any more laid back, you'd think that fellow was asleep. He's very relaxed. Even during the contacts that they had. So I wasn't there in his troop, but speaking with my mates that were there, just very even keeled, no stress, bullets and everything coming in towards him and his team and the other B troop operators. That was my first, and the guys that I'd passed cycle with, our first major deployment into combat. There, we could hear over the radio that they're in contact in their area. And the boys talking about him after, just very, very calm, very chilled, which is not surprising to hear. And even on selection, man, he, I would say I was surprised by, not kind, I don't think that's the word, even though it may have felt like that, but just like you said, spoke to everybody with respect. He still spoke to us like with respect. He could have played the role of an angry militia guerrilla person that we were there to support and all sorts of things, but he didn't. He was just the same as what he was. So once we went through cycle and then got into the unit, he was the same as what I remember him on selection, which was my first interaction with him, which was just him telling us what we needed to do, and he was just very matter of fact, and just very cool. So anyway, cool that you got to meet him, and the infamous kit check on selection. Everybody getting stripped down to their birthday suit, and then having the females and everything else and other directed staff go wandering through and having your kit checked. Yeah, fun times. Anyway, that's that. Don't think that's it. No other questions and stuff on here. Drought 8199. Oh yeah, cheers. You're welcome. Thanks for the question. There's plenty of information out there now on the selections for both. Australia's changed a bit. I think I got asked a question last week's live what I thought about the combined. I don't like it, but that again, it's because I don't know much about it. So anyway, until next Friday, or until you see some more YouTube shorts being posted up from me, hope you all have an awesome weekend. Stay safe. Gary Teal. Kia ora, Uncle Joe. Kia ora. Have an awesome weekend. Stay safe. To those affected by the landslides and the crap weather that's been happening in NZ and Australia, to be fair, man, thoughts are with those people, So hopefully everything works out as well as what it can. Life happens, and it's one of those things that unfortunately will impact us at different times. On the back end of that, likewise, enjoy your weekends too, Thank you for your time, support as always. Regardless, any challenges you're going through, man, stay in the fight, keep turning up, one foot in front of the other, take one day at a time. I promise you things can do and will get better if you want them to. So just stick at it. And go always a little further. Remember, who dares wins and who cares wins. And until the next video, there is a big mana wave coming from me to you, filled with my aroha, respect, appreciation, and gratitude for you all. Oh, just whack the wall. Thank you, everybody. See you, Zay. Have a safe weekend. And that went over in